PSG have one foot in the Champions League final. Big up to everybody that's here. Big up to everybody that is watching this video. Hit the like button and also subscribe if you are new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And obviously get involved in the comment section. Would love to hear your take about last night's big Champions League game where Arsenal lost 1-0 to PSG. Give me your thoughts and comments about the situation there. And of course, your predictions on how you think the second leg will go. All of that good stuff and much more, I'm sure, mate, for great and interesting reading. And without further ado, we're going to get into the conversation ourselves. We're going to be talking about PSG beating Arsenal by a 0 last night. And let's face it, they absolutely deserved it. They absolutely deserved to win the game last night. I think from an Arsenal perspective, the only thing that you can really take from last night as a positive is that it wasn't by more. They didn't win by more. There is still an opportunity there to go to France, go to Paris, and get a result at the Parc des Princes in any way, shape or form, because PSG could have been out of sight last night had they been more clinical, had they taken their chances. Arsenal were very fortunate that this is still a 1-0 deficit that they have to overturn next week. Yeah, it's going to still be tough. It's going to still be a massive uphill battle to obviously go to Paris, go to the Parc des Princes, go in front of the PSG Ultras and try and get any form of result. But it's still not out of the realms of possibility. There is still an opportunity there that Arsenal can make history. Arsenal can overturn this 1-0 deficit. But let's face it, last night it was all about PSG. They were absolutely brilliant last night. They carried out their game plan to absolute perfection. And Luis Enrique outthought, outmaneuvered, outclassed, outshined, absolutely schooled Mikel Arteta. Like the absolute masterclass on show was really, really executed perfectly. Every one of them PSG players carried out their game plan. The manager was just on it from the start. He was so smart in the way that he carried out. And that is part of what it came down to. I think last night's game came down to two things, and that was game management and mentality. When I look at certain individuals on that day, PSG side of things, Donnarumma was exceptional. Yeah, maybe PSG did ride their luck at times. Arsenal did create a few opportunities. A couple of them, I think, would have been called out for offside if they've obviously found the back of the net. But the other ones, Donnarumma was equal to. And he had another exceptional Champions League game last night. I thought Nuno Mendes locked up Saka. I thought the midfield, again, of PSG, their best asset to have, was absolutely exceptional. João Neves is just ridiculous for a player of his age. And then, of course, Dembele takes his goal really well. Kvaratskhelia had Jiri and Timber on toast. It was truly an exceptional performance by PSG across the opening 90 minutes of this tie. And like I say, it comes down to game management and mentality for me last night. The game management side of things from PSG was exceptional. The game management of Arsenal was not. It was perfectly executed from PSG. Perfectly executed from PSG. I think when you look at the way that obviously they silenced the crowd, they silenced the atmosphere by scoring the opening goal in the opening few minutes of the game, the Arsenal fans just didn't know how to respond. They went down there, they got really riled up by their manager in the pre-match in the pre-match comments and the pre-match interviews and points to camera and stuff. And they didn't know how to respond. As soon as Dembele scored, they didn't know how to respond. They didn't know how to kind of try and just go, right, we're suffering an early setback. Let's just keep going because we're really going to drag our team over this and they're going to feed off our energy. And to be honest with you, it looked like Arsenal had fed off that energy a little too much in the pre-match kind of atmosphere, because the way that Arsenal went about their business, especially from the beginning, was they were going to go out, they were going to overexert themselves, they were going to chase every ball, they were going to try and win the ball back at every opportunity, and PSG were just so good for the opening 25 minutes of just beating Arsenal's press and just playing around them. It was like watching adults take on kids. It was like men versus boys out there for the opening 25 minutes. They just simply popped the ball around them with absolute ease. There was always a free man wherever they could find them. And they created a couple of decent opportunities, including, of course, the goal. PSG, absolutely sublime. Silenced the crowd, took the sting out of the occasion, kept the ball. And then, after they allowed Arsenal to run around like a bunch of headless chickens for about 25 minutes, then they decided to reserve energy, reserve themselves a little bit. They basically allowed Arsenal to have the ball and create a couple of opportunities. Yes, of course, it's going to be Arsenal, so they are going to create a couple of opportunities. And PSG may have rode their luck at times, like I say, by, maybe relying on maybe the offside trap of working if obviously it did find the back of the net. Or maybe their star goalkeeper who was having like a man-possessed style of performance in the Champions League this season. Maybe that was the case as well, because, like I say, Arsenal did create a couple of opportunities. But other than that, PSG were more than happy for Arsenal to have the ball, and they were saying to them, try and break us down. Go on, try and break us down. And then by the 55th to 60th minute of the game, after half-time, Arsenal were done. Arsenal were absolutely done, in my opinion. Like, watching them, it was like when the clock hit those particular minutes, it was like Arsenal's energy dropped. They were so tired. They put so much effort into chasing down PSG for the opening 25 minutes, and obviously PSG just playing around them. And they put a lot of energy into trying to obviously find an equalising goal from the 25th minute onwards, that they were just done. And yes, the offside goal occurred, and it was definitely offside, so nothing really more you can say about that one. But they didn't really follow it up with anything. Like, again, I think Gabriel Martinelli had maybe a couple of opportunities, but didn't really take them. Donnarumma, again, was equal to at least one of them. Donnarumma, the save he made in the second half to get down low and just tip it round the post was absolutely brilliant, by the way. Absolutely incredible stuff from the Italian goalkeeper. But you just saw that as soon as they were tired, PSG sensed that. And that's when they went in for the kill again. That's when they tried to go for the kill, because they reserved energy for the second third of the game, shall we say. And then they just went, right, Arsenal are done. We can do what we did in the first 25 minutes and see if we can kill this game off. And like I say, if it hadn't been for the poor finishing of PSG in the second half, they probably would have been out of sight. It could have been 2, 3, even 4-0 on the night. It was absolutely brilliantly done by PSG, the game management side of things. As far as the mentality side of things, look, it's something that I mentioned time and time again with Arsenal this season. When the pressure is off Arsenal, they are absolutely fine to go out there and play their natural game. We saw it against Real Madrid. Some may say the pressure was on then. I say that no one was expecting them to do anything, therefore the pressure is somewhat off. Look at what they did when the pressure was somewhat off them. Tonight, a lot of people were going into this game, a lot of Arsenal fans in particular, were expecting Arsenal to get a result to take to Paris next week in order to finish the job off there. And they absolutely flopped. I saw a fair few Arsenal fans mock PSG. I saw a fair few Arsenal fans basically use that expression of, well, we beat them already in the league phase, so why don't we go in there and just do the same again? Because you're not facing the same PSG side. You're facing a PSG side that had the likes of Dembele and Kvaratskhelia this time around, and you're facing a much more well-oiled machine, especially in that midfield, which I can't speak highly of. If you'd have asked if you'd have listened to any Liverpool or Aston Villa fan, you would have known that this is not the same PSG side that you faced several months ago. This is a completely different animal. This is a much more well-oiled machine, and this is a dangerous, dangerous side who I think is probably a prolific striker away from genuinely winning this competition, but that may be a conversation saved for a later date. As the game wore on, the players, the crowd, they both continued to crumble and decay. Like I say, by the 60th minute, the players were done. The atmosphere died down after the opening 5, 10, 15 minutes. The belief was wiped out, and it rubbed off on the players as well from the crowd. Like I say, I think a lot of the pre-match energy stemmed from the crowd to those Arsenal players, and I think they overexerted themselves, feeding off that crowd's energy too much. And then when the disbelief started to filter through, again, I think it rubbed off on the players again, that they couldn't drag themselves to properly finish the game. And you saw it in some of the individual players as well. Juri and Timber had an absolute nightmare. Kvaratskhelia had him on toast. He was absolutely exceptional last night, the Georgian international. Declan Rice was practically doing the job of 3 midfielders in there. And Odegaard, surprise, surprise, ghosted again. I mean, I was sat there last night, and when he went off, I was like, how has he managed to survive this long? How is he still in the Arsenal team with the amount of poor performances he's put in this season? How is he still captain? How is he still being chosen? There were so many questions I had about Martin Odegaard last night. Like, no wonder Arsenal lost. They were playing with 10 men all night. They genuinely were playing with 10 men all night. Odegaard was nowhere to be seen. Martin Ghostegaard. Like, how? How is this guy still being picked for Arsenal when he hasn't put in a decent performance all season, apart from when it's not really mattered? Like, how? It honestly, it baffles the mind. And I think next week, Mikel Arteta, if he has to have any chance of overturning this 1-0 deficit, has to obviously go with 11 players on the pitch, and therefore has to play Nwaneri. He has to play Nwaneri on over Odegaard, because when he came on last night for his little 5-minute cameo, which was ridiculous, by the way, because Arteta completely got it wrong in terms of substitutions. Couldn't really do much about the starting 11, granted, but he could have still brought on certain players to maybe change the game, and he didn't really do that until extremely late on, when there was barely any time left. He has to go with 11 players on the pitch next week, and Nwaneri is definitely a player who made an impression and was actually much better than anybody probably on that pitch, in the attacking third at least, in his little 5-minute cameo that he put on yesterday. Arteta certainly needs to at least consider that going into next week, because Odegaard absolutely stunk the place out last night. He was absolutely dreadful, in my personal opinion. As far as what the referee goes, the referee had an absolute shocker. I actually do feel like Arsenal got very lucky not to have conceded a penalty when Kvaratskhelia went through and Timber held him. I think I've seen them given more so in Europe than in the Premier League, so I'm quite surprised that another European referee didn't quite follow that precedent of giving the penalty. I was a little bit surprised that situation wasn't overturned. He gave some strange yellow cards. It was very inconsistent performance. The card dealing was very inconsistent as well. Yeah, it wasn't a good night for the referee. It definitely wasn't a good night for the referee. You could maybe argue that 1 or 2 players could have seen a second yellow card, and maybe again he's judging the occasion, and not the actual situation. So you could maybe argue that. But yeah, the referee was not great last night. Actually, not great for both teams. yeah, he weren't great last night. But no, I mean, I think if you're Arsenal, if you're looking for people to blame Martin Odegaard, blame Mikel Arteta because of not making any substitutions early enough. You can blame a fair few players if you want. I think you can also blame Thomas Partey because it's clear that you missed him in that midfield last night. I don't know if he would have made a complete difference, but he would have certainly made some sort of difference in there. But obviously he was suspended for getting a yellow card in the previous game of the Champions League for something extremely stupid. You can blame him as well for not being there. Like I said, I'm happy that PSG got their opening result. I've actually predicted an Arsenal win, to be fair, and Arsenal to go through to the final. And like I say, it's not out the realms of possibility for Arsenal to overturn this, even if it is in front of the PSG Ultras. But PSG were exceptional last night, and they deserve their praise, they deserve their flowers, and they deserve respect being put on their name. Do I suspect Arsenal will have something to say about it next week? I think so. I mean, it can't be a worse performance than this, but the only downside to it obviously is that Arsenal have to, if PSG manage it again, if the game management side of PSG is on point, they have to come out next week. Arsenal, they have to go for the kill and go and try and manage the game similarly to how PSG managed it last night. And I don't necessarily think Arsenal will be able to do that with this very, very, very technically gifted PSG side. And not only that as well, but if Arsenal have to push for a goal, it leaves them very vulnerable defensively. And you're against one of the best counter-attacking teams in the world right now. Hopefully, Dembele's injury isn't too serious. Hopefully, he will play some part next week. But even without him, you've still got to contend with the likes of Barcola, Kvaratskhelia, of course, and Doué, who, in the first half especially, showed some very, very neat footwork. And that is a very dangerous prospect. When those three are firing on all cylinders, when those three are interchanging and switching very, very fluidly, it's a very terrifying prospect to face. And especially when you're having to attack and you're worried about leaving space in behind for the counter-attack, PSG could flourish in that environment. It's not out of the realms of possibility for Arsenal. Still think they may have something to say about this game, but it is going to be a difficult task to go to France, to go to Paris, in front of the Parc des Princes and the PSG Ultras, and get a result by overturning a 1-goal deficit. Excellent from PSG, not so much from Arsenal, but there's still another 90 minutes to play. We're only halfway done in this tie. Let me know what you guys are thinking and feeling about this down below in the comments section. Hit the like button if you haven't already. Subscribe if you are new. Both things will always and forever be greatly appreciated. And of course, thank you all so much for watching and listening. And thank you all for your continued or brand new support to the channel. Really does mean a lot to me. Thank you so much, guys. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video. And I will soon speak to you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'll speak to you all again very, very soon.